Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. I have a bloody beauty of a podcast for you guys today. Well, girls, actually. I'm joined by Mikaela, who is a women's coach who runs women's self-love fitness retreats, not only in Australia, but in freaking Bali. And she's here, she's actually running these retreats to empower girls to move their bodies, to celebrate movement, to find confidence and acceptance for themselves and create a community and connection and overall just having fun, which I'm all freaking about. Now, she trains, her style of training is mainly CrossFit at the moment, and she comes from a background of F45, whoever is familiar with that style of training. And when she was training at F45 back then, all she wanted to do is to be smaller, to burn more calories, and never thought of the word rest. And if you resonate with this, I highly recommend you to continue listening, because from her experience, she is here to inspire you girls and empower you to have the same freedom of food, the same freedom of the obsession with exercise, and use her journey to fire everyone's fire up and help one another. So let's freaking start this fire together. Welcome, girl.
Oh my God, that was so awesome. You were the best. I was just like watching a show. I was so entertained. I'm like, oh my God.
Welcome.
Woo! You're like, oh my God, that was amazing. Hello. Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I know I've already touched a little bit about what you're currently doing, but I want to hear how far you've come, because you're very big on self-love and you're very big on a healthier body image journey. So yeah, let's dive into that. Tell me, what has the journey been like for you?
Yes. So it all started back, I have a background of dance, which I think unfortunately leads a lot of people down this same route. I think it's actually very similar to any individual sports, because my other sister was a gymnast, and but then my other brother was ball sports, so team sports. And it's kind of interesting how it never really has the same correlation with mental health. It's almost like it's like you against you, and it's like you comparing against the others rather than correlating with the team environment. It's really quite interesting. So I started doing dancing from when I was super young. So from when I was like 5 years old, all the way up until year 12, when kind of was like breakthrough moment. I had a back injury and was supposed to go into full-time dance. But because of the back injury, was kind of forced to take rest. Here we are. And which led me to do personal training and fitness, because I've always been super active and I never wanted to have a job that was like sitting in a desk. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a dancer. What else can I do that's super active? So it kind of led me into like the fitness stuff. Unfortunately, it still didn't keep, even though I was forced to rest, I still went into that spiral of F45. I became a trainer with them. Just had really bad relationship with like exercise and food. And looking back, it's really quite sad, all the opportunities that I missed out on because of that obsession. Specifically, one example that probably highlights the most is we went for a family holiday to one of I think it was just Phillip Islands, like in Victoria. And we all got an ice cream, and Mum never forced us to have an ice cream in you have to eat. But looking back, I can really see why, because when you have an ice cream together, even if you're just there and you don't have one, it really doesn't create that bonding moment. It's like, it really does make a really nice impact when you all have one and you share that ice cream together at this particular holiday. And anyway, I was very stubborn and would refuse to have one, and just somehow like a lot of these things I kind of had told myself I didn't like, because it was easier for me to be like, oh, I don't like that. Or that was my easy way to say that I wasn't going to have it, because people don't question that. It's like people don't question if you don't like it. They're like, okay, you don't like a food. And I just remember that and I also remember the impact I would have had on my younger sisters as well, because I was the oldest. And obviously I'm not in like the reason that they have issues, because obviously that comes from a whole different reasons. But it is really quite sad, like being the oldest sister. Like I had a really big opportunity to create a really positive role model for them. And by me being so restrictive and me being so obsessed with exercising and getting upset when it was Christmas Day and I couldn't go to an F45 workout, and like those tiny little things that like my sisters would have picked up on, like, oh, okay, that's weird. It really upset me that like that was the kind of thing that then they thought they had to do, which when I looked at them, I thought they were amazing. It was just kind of a bit of like a wake up call. But I think the real pivoting thing, I moved to the Gold Coast, which was about 5 years ago. Completely changed my scenery. I came out of a 7.5 year relationship, which was a very big change of my identity and like who I was and like what I wanted to do. And I met the partner that I'm with now. And funnily enough, he came out of a bodybuilding competition. And so he had just come out of a similar thing, restricting and binging and obsessing as well. So it was quite funny that we met each other at that time. And we both came together at that time and changed our training. So we both were like, oh, CrossFit seems kind of cool. We just started it together and kind of helped influence each other to live more and create more of a balance in our lives. And it's kind of just slowly happened. And then the retreats for me was just like, oh my God, like I have the opportunity to help other girls the same way that I could have. I mean, I still did help my sisters in other ways, but the same way that, you know, I can have that impact now to other young women. And I think when we appreciate and accept ourselves, girls are more confident to take risks. They're more confident to like start a new job or their own business. And they're things that only happen in confidence. Like if you don't have confidence, you're going to stay where you are. You're going to like stay with that person that might not make you happy. And it's like, if I can empower girls to be like, actually, no, like you're worth this, you need to believe in this, then they might then be able to take the tools to make their life awesome. So yeah, that was a very long answer to it. Very short.
I love that. And you know what? I think a lot of our listeners will be resonating with this right now. I'm totally resonating with this because years ago I came out of a 7-year relationship, and you kind of lose your identity of how you are as a person because you're so attached to them in terms of like what you used to do and how. And funnily enough, I had a horrible relationship with food and a horrible relationship with my body. So it's interesting to see when you step yourself away from that time and that environment wasn't necessarily toxic, but it wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
It wasn't serving a purpose to move forward. So it's interesting to hear that from another person going, hey, like this ended and now this has happened. And I always believe something happens for a reason. And you and your partner met on this amazing journey where you both came from like really unhealthy ways of looking at yourselves and treating your body to cultivating a healthier relationship and going, cool, let's try something new and see where it goes.
It's so true. You're so right. It's actually quite funny. I remember I used to be the type of person that would have every single thing planned from like 10 a.m. or whatever a.m. I was like, okay, coffee with this person, 30 minutes, this thing, next, like full day. We matched on Tinder. That's how we met. And he was like, oh, okay, when are you free? And I was like, all right, so I've got 45 minutes tomorrow, otherwise 2 weeks. He's like, 2 weeks? What do you mean 2 weeks? Who doesn't have like 10 minutes to have coffee? And I was like, oh, sorry, I've got 45 minutes tomorrow, otherwise, you know, it's well. And he lives his life so different. Like, I'm like, hey, what do you want to do tomorrow? He's like, not sure. I'm like, okay, that's really annoying. So it was a really good balance. Like he really woke me up in a lot of ways. And he even picked it up when he first met me. He's like, this girl doesn't want to be with her thoughts because she's always so busy. And it was so interesting that he picked that up like before really even knowing me. So yeah, he's taught me a lot with that, just to be like, again, not so much resting because he struggles with that sometimes too, but more just being like not controlling everything all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that because having control, well, trying to have control over everything is a deep root of something that we're avoiding.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to our relationship with food and our bodies, you know, a lot of people will want to have that form of control, whether it's in the gym, whether it's meal prep. It's because something else in their lives isn't serving them a purpose, or they're not happy, or they're miserable about something that, whether it's gym and training or whether it's work, you know, so many people are like, I'm so busy, you know, work is crazy. It's just like, but are you busy or are you productive? Like, what's going on?
Yes, that's so true. I fully agree with that too. Everything we do, like our behaviors always stem from something else. And even like, I think it's also our attachment to like this identity. It's like, yeah, I'm a busy person, or like, yeah, I don't know, whatever it is. But like, yeah, we just attach. It's like our body just wants to be part of something and label something. I did that with being vegan. I used to be vegan for like 4 years or something. And what really stopped me from being vegan, I mean, I mostly just eat a plant-based diet, but was removing myself from that family of label, because it kind of got me into that obsession, because I'd be like, oh, sorry, I can't have that. I'm vegan. Sorry. Yeah. Like, again, it was just another way to just like add this thing. And not being vegan and like just being like I am intolerant to dairy. So like it's my own fault if I eat something. But at least now it's like a choice. It's not like it's a no or a yes. It's just like, it's just a thing. And if I have it, it's like not the end of the world, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah.
you just end up in the toilet for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just like, why did I do that? That was a terrible idea. But it's also like, well, I didn't say no to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. I love the fact that we've brought this conversation up, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners right now are trying to cultivate some form of, I hate the word balance,
Yeah.
but finding a balance with their own relationship with food and their body. And you know, when you mentioned before how you strive to always wanting to do more and more and more and find difficulty doing rest, how did that change for you, especially with a new relationship? You know, your partner is completely different to your style of, you know, thinking and working. What does rest look like for you right now?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's been about finding the balance that works for my personality, so that I know that even though I don't need control of my entire day, I also know my personality really loves some sort of structure, whether it's like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do a workout at 10. And if that's the only thing I plan, then at least my brain's like, okay, cool. I've got some like something for the tomorrow. And that's a healthy enough balance for me to still know that mentally my brain works well. Otherwise, it's just super anxious. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to get anything done. But at least I have some sort of thing and it's a healthy structure. So I've definitely learned that through going the other way, where I've just been like, okay, fine, I'll surrender to what you do and not have a plan. And realized that although that really works for him, it doesn't work for me. It goes the other way for me, where I'm like, oh my God, now, are you sure you want to go now? Like, it just makes me go crazy. But I don't have to be so obsessed that I've got my wake up to bedtime fully planned out. So yeah. And then in terms of rest, for me, it looks different because the way I train is quite intense. So my lower intensity, like rest days, still incorporate movement. And that's just simply because I really like to go on a walk or love to do a stretch. And movement to me is one of the ways that it helps me like process my thoughts and just like releases stagnant energy and stuff like that. So rest to me is how my body feels, and being honest with myself. It's like, okay, I'm not going to go for a run if it's supposed to be a slow day and my calves are sore, but I might do like a really nice stretch or go for a surf or something fun, that still rest off the program, but it's still movement. Yeah.
It's wonderful to see how the mentality around training has changed for you, because as
Yeah.
you said before, you know, you were like training to burn calories and you're obsessed with food, where now it's just like, cool, I'm going to move my body because I want to move it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so cool. It's so nice. It's like quite crazy that when you look back, you're like, oh my God, I used to do that. Like, and it's so funny because the results weren't even there. Like I was just training to just do a session just to like tick the box and burn the calories, and then you eat food just to eat the food because you know you have to eat food, but it doesn't really have meaning. And it's kind of like you just go through life like one dimensional and doesn't really mean anything to you. And I kind of teach my girls that in my retreats, and I'm like, have like intention. Like you don't have to want to be really strong in the gym, but like have an intention for your movement. Like what are you doing it and why? Like if you're going for a walk, is it to like call your mom, or is it just because you love being outside, or is it just because, you know, whatever it is for you, and having like a reason, because it's what we can make it feel good for us. Same as food. Like the reason that I have a good balance with it now is because I have a great balance of like having memories and like seeing friends and not removing myself like I used to. But I also know what makes me feel good with my digestion. I have a pretty sensitive stomach. So I know that like if I just say, oh, I'll eat anything, I know that that probably won't make me feel good either. So yeah, it's just finding that balance as well.
Balance. What a word. We need to
Yeah.
come up with a new word, because
I
to be honest,
agree.
because everyone's like, I just want to get balance, you know, I have a balanced lifestyle. And I'm just like, what is balance, man? You know?
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Maybe
Like
it's
I know balance is going to look completely different to me, to what it's going to look to you, to what it's going to
yeah.
look to Susie next door. So, but
I always do Susie too. I always say like, I'm like, oh, and then Susie. Like, bless Susie. She's getting so much recognition.
she's going to be so famous one
She'll
day.
be so famous. Make sure you put her in the show notes.
This is dedicated to Susie.
This podcast is dedicated to Susie.
But yeah, it's so true. Like balance doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. It could be 60-40. It could be
Oh yeah.
30. But as long as it's working within your lifestyle, within your needs, like you said, with food, a perfect example is you're not going to eat foods that obviously you're not going to be able to tolerate. You're not going to be able to digest properly, or which are going to give you those like toxic beliefs or
Yes.
you know, like that's a huge one that I speak to about with my clients. It's like you can have all the food that you want, but if it's not serving you mindfully, why are you doing it?
Yep, so true. So true. Going back on balance too, I think something that really helped me visually is I like to think of my life as different cups. And so like I have like a friend cup and like a, you know, partner cup and like an exercise cup, whatever. And like the point of life is that your cups are never going to be the same, because and balance is always going to be different. Like sometimes balance for you is going to be not the same because your priorities will be different, but it's still balance in your life at that point. So it's like I think it's important to know and not beat yourself up when your balance isn't the same as where it was last year, because last year you were working on something different, or you were a different person, or whatever. Maybe you didn't have a child, maybe you do have a child now, whatever it is for you. But when I think of my cups, it kind of helps me, like if I'm lacking something, I'm like, okay, why do I feel off? What cup is a little bit low at this time that I could make a little bit more full? Like maybe I haven't seen any friends this week, or maybe I haven't gone to the beach, or whatever I feel I need. And that kind of helps me find balance, that lovely word, for me and my balance. So, yeah.
I love the analogy of the cups, and it's so funny that you mentioned that, because yesterday morning I was journaling and I was asking myself, do I see myself as a full cup kind of girl, or do I see myself as a empty? No, half full,
half glass filled, or something, whatever.
yeah, or
Yeah.
like half filled, empty kind of girl, because they're two different ways of looking at yourself. So if you're constantly looking at your cup being filled with different areas, your life is going to fucking thrive. You're going to feel abundant. But if you're constantly looking at how empty it is, you're going to have such limiting beliefs around that.
So true. Yeah. What are you attaching to? That's so true. So true.
Yeah. So it's really cool to have, you know, these conversations, especially with women. You know, as women ourselves, we've been there. We know what it's like to be so obsessed with food and exercise that one day you're just like, surely something else is out there that you can, you know, get a little bit better at.
Definitely. I think it's like not trying to be like you or like someone else or like whatever you see, because like you were saying before, everyone's balance is so different. And if you try to have the balance of someone that you know or someone that you've seen on social media, it will never work for you because you're not them and you don't have their life and you don't actually know what their balance looks like anyway, because you're only seeing, if you see them in person, you see them like twice a week, or if you see them online, you're seeing what they show. So it's like everyone has to be honest with themselves and like make their own balance, because you're the person that knows yourself best. Like, why compare to Susie, because you don't have Susie's life, you know?
Bloody Susie, here you go. Oh, I love it. So good. But yeah, it's so true regarding the balance, as you mentioned. Now, in terms of training, I know we spoke a little bit that right now you're doing more like the CrossFit style side of things. With the style of training, how is your relationship with your body right now?
Yes. So interestingly enough, it was another transition, like going into the CrossFit space, obviously kind of collides with a lot of the old beliefs I used to have, because a lot of the CrossFit women are super muscly, they're so athletic and amazing, but in my old perspective, they would have been, in my eyes, bulky, which is so not true, because that's the only stupid belief I had. But, and what they can do is so cool. So it has no relevance. But it was quite interesting because it almost like came in to like really test me, because there are some days where I'm like, oh, and like the look comes up. But I really have to like remember, and Rai is such a great influence for this. Like, he really is so awesome. He always reminds me that, like, you know, how boring it would be if I was just doing that sort of training. And like for him as well, like it's so fun to have each other. And like, whatever, I would be such a boring girlfriend if I was like, oh, I'm just going to go run for like another 3 hours, like, bye. Yeah. And I just like, my relationship with it now is like, I just get so inspired by all the girls, the CrossFit girls that I see compete, because the athletic and strength, and like they just have all aspects of fitness that they just tick. And I find it so inspiring that they get just really working on their performance. So for me, that's where I'm trying to like really remind myself of like performance and like, what are my goals? Like, and it also helps me with the food, because obviously they go hand in hand. It's like, if you don't eat enough, then how are you supposed to perform enough? So it's kind of helped me kind of make it all in one.
I love that. CrossFit women are wild.
Oh, they're so cool.
They are wild. I don't watch the games that often, but one of my girlfriends recently introduced me to it just to watch it for fun.
Yeah,
And I tell you what, I admire everything they do.
So cool. Hey, it's like, so you're going to run all these endurance and then you're going to squat 200 kilos. What? Like, it's so cool.
So much athletic power to that, which as you said, it's very inspiring to see, especially women doing that type of training. Like, it's very demanding on the body.
Yeah, it's so demanding. I think it's really cool because I've seen a lot of interviews actually from a lot of those girls who are like really high level, and they are really opening up and speaking about their journey the same as mine. Like, how that when they started into the sport, and, you know, obviously they're doing like a lot of weight training, they talk about how they had the same transformation. And it's really cool because now they're like these awesome role models for so many girls. And I think the industry has really opened up to so many different things. Like, girls can be strong, not that they couldn't be before, but I think it was like trendy to be a cardio bunny, whereas now it's like quite open. Like, you can still be a cardio bunny if you want to, but you can also be a powerlifter, or you can also be like a sprinter, or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's literally teaching women to do the style of training that they love doing instead of following what, you know, Susie's doing next door.
Sorry, Susie, we know you love F45, but
but it's not our style.
yeah, but we don't want to do that. Yeah, you're so right. It's cool. It's like, the more that we can see a variety of different things, the more that in our minds, we're like, okay, I have the ability to do this and this. Especially women, like women coming up into sport is really cool. It's so inspiring because it's mostly, for the most part, being men as on sport.
Most sports, yeah.
Yeah.
So true. Now, you mentioned a good point before how with the demanding of training right now, you
Yeah.
are wanting to eat more to be able to
Yes.
perform better. How did that mindset change for you from, not wanting to eat or having like food obsessions to now you're like, I need freaking food?
Yeah, to train. Yeah, it's so crazy. I look back and I used to be the person who would like no oils, no processed, like it was like vegan, raw, like, and funnily enough, like our bodies, even though like yes, it's really natural and clean, like it actually didn't really digest in my body anyway because it was quite raw and like undigestible in that like raw state. And it does still come up sometimes. Like there are some times where I'm like, oh, like those thoughts come up, but I think it's a good thing because you realize that they're just coming and going. It's not like always there in your brain. So like you're like, okay, yeah, I see you, yeah, I know who you are. And you either eat the food and like get rid of the thought, or you like reassess and you go, oh, okay, actually, whatever. But I know that the workouts are going to be so much better when I eat for fuel. And I think, again, the surrounding and who you're around is really helpful. Like Rai is the same. He eats for performance. He reminds me of that as well. The other guys that I live with are the same. And I think that really helps as well, having a community of people around you, whether it's your family or your friends, that support your goals. It doesn't have to be performance, but like they just support your goal to be better and healthier. I think is really cool because it stops you being the only driver of thoughts. Like when you're surrounded by other people, subconsciously you see other people like eating normally foods and you're like, oh yeah, cool, that's normal. Actually, what I'm about to do is not normal. So, it just helps you feel like, oh yeah, it's okay
Hmm.
to eat, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely okay to eat, girls.
It's definitely okay. It is more than okay. Yeah, it's really
All the
cool.
food.
It's so great. Yeah, what did you say?
I said, eat all the food.
All the foods. It's so awesome. Like, I love the fact that I can say to Rai, like, oh, do you want to have a pizza night? Like, having these memories and like being able to do that is so fun. Like, life is supposed to be lived, and you're gonna leave this earth and be like, oh, I didn't go for gelato. Like, don't think that's gonna be remembered. Like,
Definitely.
it doesn't matter. It's just we sweat over these things and it really doesn't matter.
Mm. You made such a good point before, also being around a supportive network of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big one because for many years I was around people who just didn't serve me a purpose whatsoever. It influenced me badly to look at my food and my body. So
Yep.
when coming from a positive aspect of being surrounded by people who, doing the same as you, what are some things that have helped you along the way to, because you mentioned before, you're like, oh, like it is normal to eat this or it's normal to do this, but how did you overcome those, limiting beliefs to now you're living more of an abundant life around food?
Definitely. To be honest, I think being around the boys a lot.
Mhm.
Like I train with the boys. I live with Rai's two friends that are boys, and it's quite funny. My old sort of friendship group back in Melbourne was like people who were dancing, or like other girls who were like in high school who were also obsessed about all the same things. And then like, not that guys aren't insecure, they definitely are. And I know Rai's had his own journey with like bodybuilding and stuff, but they don't sweat the small stuff as much, and it's really refreshing. It's like, oh, you actually don't care. And then they're the people, like, I mean, like depending who you're attracted to, but for me the guys are the people that I'm trying to like impress anyway. And I'm like, if you don't even care, then why the hell am I worrying about it? Not that it doesn't matter like what they think anyway, like I am who I am. But you realize that what you're obsessing over only matters to you, and you're the only person who notices it. And
Mm.
so why put yourself through all of the pain if no one's even taking any notice? Like it doesn't even matter. So I think I just learned that it actually wasn't making me feel very good, and it also consumed my entire day, and I had no room to like try a new opportunity or make new friends or, yeah, really invest in myself. So I think one day I was just like, I just, it's not fun anymore. Not that it ever was fun.
When was that moment that it just like clicked and you're like, I've had enough?
I think it was definitely when I met Rai, because I realized that I was like, those tiny little moments, and he's like, oh, do you want to go do this? And my immediate brain was like, oh no, I don't have control. Like, we're going to go out for dinner. Like, what's this going to be? And then I was like, that you're going to be the weirdo who's like, oh, can I just like check the menu before we go somewhere? Or can I just like have control over the situation? And it was just a moment of like, just like relax. And it then led into like the schedule thing as well. Just being like, just let it be a little bit more and just like, yeah, see how it goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have been through those scenarios where I just needed to know exactly where we were going,
Yes.
what time of day, so I could like articulate my meals around it.
Yeah.
Like for those who are competing, because we have a few listeners who are competitors and are online coaches, and they follow certain structures, and obviously with your current lifestyle, you do you. However, to live more of a free lifestyle around food and not having these, well, I used to suffer panic attacks from it. I don't know about you, Mick, but yeah. So having more of the freedom going, cool, we're going to go get pizza, but maybe I'll have pasta instead, instead of worrying about what to have.
Yep, you're so right. I was the same, or I would just like not go. I just be like, oh, I just can't go now. And it's like, okay, like, and then you've just fully given in to whatever, and you feel bad at home. You're like, you're by yourself. You could have been with your friends. I think like you're so right. There are people who are competing, or like if that's what you're doing, it's completely fine. Like we have our own goals. I have my own goals. I don't just like eat whatever I want because I've got food freedom. It's like still being honest with myself and like, okay, I'm going to do a really good workout tomorrow. It doesn't mean I just get to eat everything. It's like, what's going to fuel that? So it's still like making good choices, but they're not sabotaging choices. They're not like draining choices that actually don't come from me. They come from this extra voice. It's like looking within yourself and being like, okay, do I really want this? Or is this just like my negative self-doubt coming in and being like, that's what they want? So I think that's where you make the decisions. Like, is it you? Because do you really want pizza? Because if you do, that's great. Have the pizza. But if you're like, actually, yeah, you're right. I'm going to get pasta. It's fine. There's no big deal. Like, express that. But yeah.
That level of awareness is next level. To have that in-depth conversation with yourself and really like sit yourself down and be like, cool, do I need this? Do I want this? Like, what is happening? And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with because they can't dive deep into that conscious level of the relationship with food. But over time, it gets better with either, reaching out to a coach or a professional, or just, doing a little bit more research and realizing like, hey, this is not fucking normal. I need to change something.
Yeah. And I think we just overcomplicate it. Like, food is simple and exercise is simple. It should be anyway. Like, it shouldn't be this thing we think about all day, every day. Like, yes, we have to eat 3 times a day or 5 times, whatever, how many times a day you eat. But like, it shouldn't be that hard. Like, but yet we make it so hard.
Overcomplicating it.
Yeah, we really do. And I think when you make your choices simple too, like, don't attach an emotion to why, like, don't feel guilty, don't feel angry, don't feel anything. Just make the choice and be solid in it within you to be like, this is what I want, and don't have to feel anything about it. You just do it because of you want to or don't want to.
That's such a great way of looking at things. I literally had a call with a client earlier, and we were talking about food quality and quantity, and how old school mentality, you would look at food as good and bad. And that builds up a really negative relationship with food. When people are perceiving to, let's say, meat is bad or vegan is bad or donuts are bad or chocolate is bad. It's just like, bad has context to it. It could be a food allergy. It could be an intolerance like you for dairy, or it could simply mean that you just don't fucking like it. So you eat it. But when we start labeling it, it puts a really toxic belief into our head. Hence why we would be scared to going out for pizza or going out for pasta, or, not having some form of control over our eating habits because we believe something is bad out there to get us.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, it's this like monster that's just like, yeah, you're so right. It's really quite, it's really quite sad that it's so common as well. Like, I think that's why I really was so passionate about the retreats, because it's like it's almost any person you speak to has had some level of these type of thoughts before. And so on the retreats, like, there's no rules. Like, the caterer I have, she comes and she's amazing. She does all the meals. It's all plant-based, just because there's so many people that either eat only red meat or only chicken, or it's just easy just to have it plant-based. But when I hired her, I was like, I don't want there to be rules. Like, you can have burger night, you can have salad night, like whatever. Like, it's still really wholesome and delicious, but we eat everything throughout the week. And one of the retreats, one girl came and she was dealing with a lot of like negative thoughts for all of the meals, because again, it was that control. And she, at the end of the week, was like, day 4, we had pizza night, and she's like, I was really scared. She's like, but I did it, and I'm here. And she came up and she said that she'd overcome that. It was just really cool, because she was supported by all of us, again, community, who we were all just doing it. So she didn't even think about it too much. She just kind of did it and was like, okay, I'm fine, and everyone else is doing it. And yes, it was another example of that experience for her, which was really cool, really, really cool.
I love that. I love seeing clients breakthroughs, and especially within a community, because you don't feel so alone. Because, having this conversation right now, like, you and I have never met, but we've had similar interactions with food and body image issues.
Yeah.
But having this conversation, it makes you just realize, like, hey, it's not just me. Like, other people suffer this as well, and it's okay to open up about this.
Yes, you're so like, oh, I'm not weird for thinking like this, or oh, it's not stupid.
Yes.
It's like, you feel connected to them, and like, you're not just this alienated person. That's so true.
And the more we talk about it, the more people hear about it, they realize, okay, it's not just me. It is possible to overcome this, and it gives them a lot of hope.
Yeah, it does. And it also gives them the opportunity to be like, hey, like, I know what might work for you might not work for me, but can you share a bit about your experience? Like, maybe I can take on some of your tips, or obviously, like, hence these podcasts. But it's cool. The more we can talk about it, the more people can be like, hey, like, I saw your podcast, I'm struggling a bit. Like, how can you help? Or, all of that stuff. It's cool.
I love that. It's so, so true. What does life look like for you right now, free of obsession?
Oh, it's so nice. It's so good. I feel like I have so much more brain capacity to be creative and to just stress less. I feel like, my friend can text me and be like, do you want to go for coffee right now? And I'm like, yeah, cool. I can do that. And it's fun and it's uplifting. And I feel like it's just so good. It's really quite interesting. It's like, I don't have all these things. I'm like, how is my brain, when I used to think about that all the time? Like, how do I remember to put my shoes on? Like,
I love that. It's so good when you have those breakthroughs and you just realize, like, how far you've come.
Yeah. It's only until you reflect, though, because you kind of forget. It's like, we don't often look back at our accomplishments. So if you're listening to this, have a little think of your journey, because I don't think we think about it enough, like how proud we should be of ourselves, because we all do go through a lot of stuff, but we don't really ever dive into until we're like here and we're like, oh, well, now it's good, but I don't remember how I got here. It's like quite crazy.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I do with my clients is writing an achievement list, whether it's on a monthly or quarterly a list, and for them to realize, like, how far they've come and what they've actually achieved. And then they realize, I used to do this and I don't do that anymore. Or depending, like, if you want to take it like years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, one of them came up with 100 things, and I was just like, here you go.
That is really, really cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. I love that so much.
Yeah. So it just shows you, like, sitting down and just reflecting back is so freaking powerful.
So powerful. I think it gives us, like, this sense of like a proud moment. It kind of keeps you going, like, motivates you.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Totally agree.
So much.
Yeah. What are the plans for the rest of 2022 for you?
So, as you mentioned, I do run retreats. So I have one coming up I actually have one this weekend. I have like a weekend retreat, just a one night one in Byron. Hoping to get back to Bali. So that will be happening hopefully next month, with the possibility of running a Bali retreat again, which is so exciting because it's been 2 years, obviously more than 2.5 years. So that'll be really fun. I know so many people are excited to get back overseas. And then I also am competing in my first CrossFit comp in a few weeks, which is very exciting. We're doing it as a team with Riley and 2 other people. The other 2 people are like totally going to hold the team together because they're really quite fit, but that's fine. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff. I've got my parents visiting from Melbourne and my sister. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff ahead.
So good. Jam-packed of like plenty of good things.
Yeah, all the good things. I'm excited. It's going to be a good year, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic for you, especially once you head back to Bali. I think it's going to be a very cool way of, reintroducing the retreats again.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited for that because I've been running them in Australia, which has still been awesome. Yeah. But Bali just has this extra level of like, I don't know, the Balinese are so lovely. I love Bali.
Yeah, and the food is great.
And the food is great. And who doesn't want a $10 massage? Like, what?
I know, right?
You come back to Australia and you're like, excuse me, $100? Sorry.
No offense to the masseuses out there.
Yeah, no offense. You are definitely valid the $100, but
yeah, but I prefer Bali.
I prefer $10.
Oh my God, I love that. Before we get off, Mick, where can our followers and listeners find you? How can they work with you?
Yes, so I have my personal account, which is Mikaela Diblasio. So that's going to be open to interpretation to be able to spell that.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, great. If you're Italian, you understand how to spell my name. And then the retreats is empower_retreat. So that's an easy one. So yeah, that's where I am.
Girls, there you go. If you want to get in contact with Mick, send her a message, a DM, or an email to get in contact with her. And then till next time, make sure that you start doing a little bit more self-reflection. And if you get those limiting beliefs coming up, question them. Go, is it serving you or isn't it? And then, yeah, hopefully today's podcast has helped you.
Yes, I really hope it has too. It'd be really awesome to hear how you girls all found it. Thank you girls so much for listening.